In the second epistle of Peter in the first chapter in the 19th verse we can read the following words, "And so we have the prophetic word confirmed, which you do well to heed as a light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts." People have always been interested in the future. Man tries in different ways to find out what will happen in the future. The Apostle Peter emphasizes that in the Holy Scriptures we have the most reliable prophetic word. A man who wants to know the future can rightly ask himself who to turn to. It is not surprising that many people ask fortune tellers, sorcerers and astrologers for advice about their future. This is not a new phenomenon. People have always turned to these self-proclaimed prophets to try to find out their future. The Apostle Peter emphasizes that the Bible or the Holy Scriptures are the safest prophetic words. While Babylon was not yet at the height of its power, and while the most powerful king of Babylon has not yet appeared on the stage of history, the prophet Isaiah noticed a prophecy that was literally fulfilled. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride, will be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, nor will it be settled from generation to generation. Nor will the Arabian pitch tents there, nor will the shepherds make their sheepfolds there, but wild beasts of the desert will lie there, and their houses will be full of owls. Ostriches will dwell there, and wild goats will caper there. The hyenas will howl in their citadels, and jackals in their pleasant palaces. Her time is near to come, and her days will not be prolonged. One of the most powerful civilizations of all time flourished in the valley of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Modern man is probably not even aware of all the knowledge he uses, and it dates to Babylon. So, for example, when it comes to some mathematical knowledge, the Babylonians knew the following: 4 rules of arithmetic, squaring the square root, geometric formulas, a circle of 360 degrees. So they applied this to each circle. The Romans later borrowed it. European geometry has adopted a division into 360 degrees. It is in Babylon that the duration of day and night is divided into 12 hours. 1 hour lasting 60 minutes and 1 minute lasting 60 seconds originates also from Babylon. 100 different deities were believed in Babylon. Their great gods were Enlil, Anu, and Shamash was the god of the sun, the Sin the god of the moon, and Ishtar the goddess of fertility. When Babylon was at the height of its power, the supreme god of Babylon was Marduk. The Babylonians believed that Marduk created the world and people and became the king of the gods. On New Year's Eve, priests foretold the coming year, and now he is adjusting his divination policy. Bible is quite clear in this matter. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. Since biblical times, almost nothing has changed. A man who wants to place his trust in this book will realize that the author of this book explicitly forbids this practice. In the book Babylonian Mystery Religion, the writer wrote, "Since it was believed that Nimrod was the god of the sun or wave, fire was considered his earthly representative. Therefore, as we will describe later, in his honor were lit candles and ritual fires." The people of Babylon also believed in ghosts. They believed that there were good and evil spirits to send sickness and death, but there were also those who helped people in their work and life, observing atmospheric phenomena. They predicted what would happen in the future. One of the old records says the following: "If the god of storm thunders with his voice on the day of the moon, there will be a rich harvest." During the New Year holidays, the celebrations lasted for days, and they also included processions of the gods. 5th chapter of the book of the prophet Daniel begins with the words that the king of Babylon, Belshazzar, made a great feast. It is interesting that a lot of documents were found on the territory of the former Babylon, which mention Prince Belshazzar, the son of the emperor Nabonidus. On those documents, it is noted that Nabonidus was not a popular ruler. For that reason, he fled to one city where he settled and stayed there for some time. His son Prince Belshazzar remained in Babylon as his governor. In the book of the prophet Daniel in the 5th chapter we see Belshazzar making great feast. Historical reports speak of this event. It was the 10th year of Belshazzar's reign. His father Nabonidus wanted to return to the city and sit on the throne again. However, he heard that the Persian army was approaching the city. Nabonidus did not return to Babylon. And since Belshazzar heard that Nabonidus will not return, he thought this was a special occasion for his coronation. Belshazzar prepared a great feast to which he invited his nobles. While he tasted the wine, Belshazzar gave the command to bring the gold and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple which had been in Jerusalem, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. According to the report, when Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem, he took the vessels from the Jerusalem temple and transferred it to Babylon, to the temple of the god Marduk. Taking the vessels that were used for worship was in fact blasphemy. They drank wine, and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. In the same hour the fingers of a man's hand appeared and wrote opposite the lampstand on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his hips were loosened, and his knees knocked against each other. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke, saying to the wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing, and tells me its interpretation, shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck, and he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Now all the king's wise men came, but they could not read the writing, or make known to the king its interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly troubled, his countenance was changed, and his lords were astonished. Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king spoke, and said to Daniel, "Are you that Daniel who is one of the captives from Judah, whom my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard of you, that the Spirit of God is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they could not give the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of you, that you can give interpretations and explain enigmas. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered, and said before the king, "Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father a kingdom and majesty, glory and honor, and because of the majesty that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whomever he wished, he executed. Whomever he wished, he kept alive. Whomever he wished, he set up. And whomever he wished, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up, and his spirit was hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. Then he was driven from the sons of men. His heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God rules in the kingdom of men, and appoints over it whomever he chooses. But you his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, although you knew all this, and you have lifted yourself up against the Lord of heaven. They have brought the vessels of his house before you, and you and your lords, your wives and your concubines, have drunk wine from them, and you have praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze and iron, wood and stone, which do not see or hear or know. And the God who holds your breath in his hand and owns all your ways, you have not glorified. Then the fingers of the hand were sent from him, and this writing was written, and this is the inscription that was written: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of each word. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom, and finished it. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances, and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom has been divided, and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain, and Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. It is an interesting historical fact that Alexander the Great decided to build his capital in Babylon. Moreover, he wanted to reconstruct the Tower of Babel, and so he began to transfer the remains of the old tower, which was located a kilometers away. However, he died suddenly, and his heirs were not interested in his plans. So, for a long time it was not even known where it was. Little by little, the city lost its inhabitants until the Great Babylon became a quarry. that people from the surrounding villages came to look for bricks and stone to build their houses. The Euphrates River, which once flowed in the middle of the city, no longer had free passage and therefore changed its direction. Today, Babylon is a pile of ruins. Several temples and palaces have been restored, springing from a sea of bricks. An idea of the greatness of the past. The only stone monument that can be found in the ruins is a lion attacking a man. No one lives in those ruins anymore, only the keeper of the museum sleeps in one modest house. Poor people cultivate the banks of the Euphrates that flow outside the old city from the time of the prophet Isaiah. Studying the Bible in the light of archaeological discoveries, the consequences seem natural. A strong and mysterious hand rules the world and leads it to a meaningful end.